Alright, welcome back. Last two videos we've been talking about resources you can use to understand video game culture. First section I talked about was books to help you get kind of a historical idea on the video game culture and how it worked, both on the technical side, the video game side, and the cultural side. I went from arcades throughout the 19th century to even to the modern times today. You had some of the best books I could find on the matter. Couldn't find a single book, but that's okay. I'll do a review on it later. Then I went into sources like arcadehistory.com. I talked about how those books or those websites in one book helped you understand the culture, but also a lot more of the technical details. They are vast websites sometimes, where just looking through them is a great thing to do when you're bored. And you'll just find out all sorts of information, and seriously, you should go check out those websites, because they're what I use to kind of do basic research. I did miss one other website, but I figured I was going to talk about it later. So, you'll see that website in later videos. So now we're going to be talking about something called historical engineering. Historical engineering is the idea where you take the technological understanding of a certain era and you try to reproduce it. Case in point, I'm making a video on, or not a video, a book on what ancient Roman arcades would look like. And I'm using the technological understanding of the ancient Romans, specifically 1st century AD, or 1st century BC, actually. And looking at, this is what they understood, this is how they did things, this is how the arcade would look like, this would be kind of the themes of the games, and this would be the technological abilities that they would have at the time. And so, and it's all looking at it from the point of view of it actually happened. But really, if you're a historian, you're like, okay, yeah, he's got this right, he's got this right, he's got this right, but really this game doesn't exist. It just exists in his mind. But if we did any research and we found any evidence of this, we'd be like, oh, wow, he found it. And that's sort of the idea of historical engineering. It's where you look at technology and you try to reproduce it. And this is absolutely perfect for people who want to make video games, or not make video games, but to understand video game culture. There's a certain point where if you want to understand video game culture, you have to be willing to program. And so I'm going to show you resources to use, mostly books, but there are websites for each subject, and I've actually skipped over a couple so that, you can check these books out yourself. But each of them will be able to help you out in understanding the concepts of what people had to go through when they were making games at that time. So, on to the subject. Okay. Game Engine Black Book Wolfenstein 3D is exactly what it sounds like. It's by a guy named Fabian Sanglard, and I actually just finished the book. And it is a fascinating research into the history of how to program Wolfenstein 3D. The details that they had that, they had to deal with. Like, okay, we can't go over 640K of information because that is all that we are given. And some of this is given to the OS, and some of this is given to the computer so that you can use your mouse or you can use your keyboard. And I have to, make a game out of this. And, all that we're using is, just this little processor here. Or if you have a video card, it's not going to be very powerful. And there's actually limitations on it as well. And, the same goes with the sound card that you have. You don't have, they didn't have standardized things for video cards or standardized things for sound cards, so you had to just program for each card and hope that you got it right. Oh well, they tested everything, and Sanglard I'm going to pronounce this in French, Saval. He just went in and he actually looked at all of the programming used. John Carmack, who was one of the main programmers for id for the longest time, actually released all of his code so that others could use it. And he talks about it openly. He was very much so an open source kind of guy. And that was kind of weird for other people because they're like, no, you're trying to make a business out of this. And it's like, yeah, so. He released the stuff for Quake, he released the stuff for Doom, and he released the stuff for Wolfenstein 3D. So Songwell looked at the program, all of the programming they took to make Wolfenstein 3D, and he talked about the hardware, the issues they had, and what they had to do to trick the system to make Wolfenstein 3D, to make things appear on the screen. And he talks about ray tracing and how it was used. And they, instead of using side shots, they used up and down shots. So if a ray trace is basically just lines being sent out, and whatever they are touch is what's going to appear on the screen. And instead of going sideways, they do vertical lines, and these lines are going to be smaller or bigger and have so much detail depending on how far away they are. And he had to calculate all of this. And they used a level editor that they used for a 2D game called, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the game. It's a fun game, too. Not Captain Underclass. Commander Keen. I loved that game back in the 90s. Oh, it was so much fun. I don't think I ever bought it. I just played it off the computers at school. Yeah. The schools that actually had PCs, that when I was going to a school that had PCs, I would play Commander Keen and stuff. Anyway, Wolfenstein 3D really gives you an idea of, what they had to go through, the limitations they had to go through, the different options they had, how they used the options, which option they would choose out, and why, and how they would kind of trick systems and all that. There were moments where I honestly had no idea what he was talking about. I would actually go back sometimes and just reread it and reread it and reread it until I had an idea. And there really was a point where I was just like, if you take this into something really simple, like Scratch, and I could make a first-person shooter based on this information he's giving. And I'm going to have to go through some different details, but he's giving all of the information to make your own first-person shooter. So it's really fascinating that way because you have everything being explained, and you should use this as kind of a companion to Masters of Doom. He references Masters of Doom a lot, where he's like, okay, well, here's a quote from the book. And then he would actually went and asked, John Romero and John Carmack and other programmers and other graphics guys, okay, what were the limitations? Why did you have to do this? Why did you think of this? And there were points where the guys were like, that was 30 years ago. I have no idea. I can't remember it all. But, that it's a look at the culture that made the program. And that is a fascinating idea. And using this, you can actually go grab the actual code from Wolfenstein 3D, and people have actually updated it so that you can run on your modern computer. And you can just be like, okay, I can make a Wolfenstein 3D level. I can make my own Wolfenstein 3D. I can do all this stuff, and I can see how things were made. And that is totally historical engineering right there. Okay, the Making Games series is released onto Amazon Print and Amazon Kindle, and I actually got this for Christmas. Haven't finished reading, but it's the same idea. The Making 8-bit arcade games in C is a bit of a stretch because none of the games we're talking about were actually made in C, but the author decided to use C as kind of a way to see what modern games were like, or what some newer games, the 90s, were like using 8-bit systems. And these are 8-bit Atari games for the most part, early 80s. And how you would program them, and what the things you have to think about when you're programming for them are. I haven't gotten into any details on how to make a game for yourself, but it goes into like depths of looping and stuff like that. And the same goes for making games for the Atari 2600. It actually teaches you assembly, which is a very, I was going to say basic. It's a very in-depth language, but it is a very, concrete language. And it uses up a lot less space when programmed in assembly. And so all of the early 70s and even early 80s games were made in assembly. And you had to understand assembly and the requirements given to you through the processors and stuff to make the game. And these books are incredible historical engineering. I haven't finished them yet, so I don't know if they give all the information yet, but they are an incredible resource if you want to, just go back and be like, okay, what was it like to program for the Atari 2600? And they'll give details on, emulators you can add and things you can do to compile the exact programs, and it will help you out a lot. I highly recommend them. You can find them on Amazon. That's actually where I got the pictures from. And, this is a great little Christmas treat. But in print, they cost about $33 a piece, and on Kindle, they cost about $10. So, up to you which one to buy. I bought the Kindle edition for one, and got the Christmas edition for Christmas edition. I got the print edition for Christmas. So, up to you. The same thing works for Wolfenstein 3D Black Book. It's an imprint off of Amazon, and the same deal goes. Just somebody who understands the programming from that era is now explaining to you how to do these things. And the true historical engineering is if you can read it and go like, okay, I understand this well enough that I can go back and I can find an emulator and I can find a compiler and I can make a game for this console. And that's sort of the goal everybody's trying to give you is to make a game for an 8-bit arcade game and therefore understand programming a little bit better, but also understand the concepts and ideas that people have to use. And then you can go and you can find interviews from those times, and you can read, Ultimate Video Game History book, and you can just be like, oh, that's why they acted this way, that's why they did this. And there's tons of resources to find within that. So these books give you kind of an in-depth, this is how it was like to live through this era. And that weird clacking sound is actually my dog. She's trying to get pets. Okay. The level design handbooks, they are out of print. If you recognize these games, you'll be like, well, yeah, duh, those games came out 20 years ago, nearly 30 years ago even, and you'd be absolutely correct. This was mid-90s games. Quake and Duke Nukem 3D came out around the same time, and there were arguments about which one was better. Technically, Quake was better because it was a full 3D game, but it wasn't as easy to make levels in. They didn't, when I was making stuff, we didn't have stuff like Hammer or Worldcraft to really make the levels, and even then it was kind of shaky. Whereas Duke Nukem 3D was actually just a version of, was very similar to Doom. It was 2D but didn't look 2D, and it uses the same ray tracing and stuff as Wolfenstein 3D, but it has a much better level editor, way, way better. And so you could jump in and edit the levels very quickly and jump in to play the game and be like, okay, yeah, this is what it's like to play the game. So these two books, they are out of print. In fact, a lot of the books I'm going to tell you about are out of print. If you're doing any historical engineering, you're going to find books that are out of print a lot, and those are really useful. And just understand that they're explaining to you the best way to do something from this era, not from not for any modern times. It's just this era. and they can go into really good depth. And these the level design handbooks are all the technical details you need to know to make levels. There isn't a lot of information on, the concepts and ideas. And just as an aside, the reason why is if you said, your school is just like a level, you would have a lot of problems. People would actually make sure the book wasn't printed. These books came out right before Columbine. And during this time, or right before Columbine, the level editors, they were just starting to get into it themselves. They would sometimes say, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to base it on buildings, but they didn't really know how to explain things. They learned a lot of good terms. And then Columbine happened, and the Columbine shooters were actually level editors. They made levels for game. And after that, all the video game companies found out about how to properly make a level. They could not tell you, okay, you know what, that shopping mall that you really like, that's Super Mario 6. That's not Super Mario 64. That is Mario Kart 64. All the deathmatch levels look just like a mall. If you were being honest, Splatoon 2, yeah, there are levels that look like malls and look like shopping centers, because that would be the perfect, setup for an actual video, for a deathmatch game. But they couldn't say this. And these books are at a specific era where they will explain things to you. They couldn't give you details on how to think about the levels, because there wasn't a lot of thought gone into it yet. So these are fascinating books. They also, you can find Duke Nukem 3D and Quake pretty easily. You can find level editors for them, and you can make levels for them. And you can just kind of jump in and just be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what it was like to kind of do stuff. Literally, the program they use to make Duke Nukem 3D is released with Duke Nukem 3D, or the level editor. So you can make mods using that, and they really want you to, because that was a major selling point for Duke Nukem 3D or Quake. Little known fact, Quake as an engine was used to make tons of games. Half-Life was Quake 1.666. Based on that engine, and they modified it a lot, and they released Half-Life, which became one of the major games. So you're looking not only at the history of games, but you're also seeing, what people had as resources to make other games. So it's a really cool thing. I highly recommend it. Just don't buy Quake just yet. I haven't bought that book yet. The game programming gems came out in the 2000s. You can tell, look, there's Jack and Daxter. They basically came out once a year for a couple of years, for several years, and they showed, these are the best ideas for game programming for consoles and PC at this time. And there were great ideas and concepts taught by some of the great programmers and designers. And these books, even to this day, can sell in the $50 range. So they're not easy to find always, but they're really, really worth finding, because they'll explain the thinking of people during that era for the best concepts and best ideas to do things when making games. And you can grab a level editor or something from that era. You can just kind of try to work on it yourself. You don't have to make your own game to understand where they were coming from or what they were doing. And that's a really cool thing to understand. For instance, Jack and Daxter was not made from scratch. They actually had a level editor, and they actually had rendering programs that they could import from, and all these other resources. So you can see the resources and other stuff within game programming gems that will help you out. Yes, this is a short review of it, but really, there isn't a lot needed to be explained. All you have to do is look at pictures and just go, oh yeah, it's going to tell me how to do this, and this is why. And not to not too difficult to explain. The graphics gems books came out in the 90s, early 90s, to understand how graphics worked from that era. I actually have several of these books. They were at a library and being just released for free, so I just snag them. I have graphics gems 1 and 3, and I thought they were game program gems, but it turns out it's a different era. But it gives you a really good idea of the resources they had during that time and what they had to do to trick your computer to do things, and also the programs that were used to kind of help you get things to work. And these books are completely out of print. They're completely useless unless you're doing historical engineering on video games or on things from that era. Because, our computers are way more powerful. We use different programming systems, different resources, and, very different things. But going through these books, you can be like, okay, yeah, I can do a basic ray trace program. Okay, I can do some shininess here. Oh, I can make this gem see-through because it's both on and off at such a rapid rate based on my computer system that it looks like it's see-through. And that's actually something that we would continue on into the Game Boy Advance era. So, these are really useful books to understand an era and how they had to think through graphics. Really useful when you're reading the other books and you're just like, okay, this is their problem. This is what they had to do, and this is a good way to do it. This doesn't mean that the programming was perfect, but it was a good idea for that year at that time. Super Mario Maker was, it exists. It is a game that lets you make levels for Super Mario Brothers. You can make levels for Super Mario Brothers 1, 3, Super Mario World, and Modern Super Mario. And I believe for the 3DS you can make for the new Super Mario whatever. And it follows some of the same, not graphics, gravitational systems as the games, and it lets you kind of go a little nuts. That's a big Goomba right there, and you can make that big Goomba stacked on top of each other and do all sorts of weird details. But you can also look at the way video games were designed, because the same grid system that you're looking at is how they designed the original Mario games. They just took out a giant grid paper and they just put in detail for detail how the level should look, and then they would discuss, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, how are we going to get into this, how far is this jump, okay, we're going to put the jump here, and just bits of details here and there working on it. This is just a modern retake of that grid paper that they had to use from back in that time. And it's a fun game, and there's always a bunch more levels to play. And really, I think the fun is just making a level and then just seeing what other people have made. It will give you a good idea of, what it was like to make a game for this era, and not go through all of the difficulties. There were people who said that, they'd make a graphic or they'd make a level, and then they would give it to the programmer, and the programmer would just shoot it off the room, and then they'd have to wait hours on end until the programmer said, okay, it's ready, now you can play it. And then they'd have to be like, well, he's jumping wrong, okay, this, and then they'd go through the details of the problems. The programmer would take it back, and then you'd have to wait. And Super Mario Maker doesn't let you wait, just goes, okay, game's made, let's play it. And that's it. That's all you have to worry about. And that's the joy of it. You get to see an era from a long time ago, and if you read up, you can find out like, okay, these were the resources they had, these were the limitations for Nintendo. How can I make this level as accurate as I can to that era? And you can get pretty cool results from it. So I highly recommend Super Mario Maker. I have it. I enjoy playing it. Whenever I'm just bored, I'll just make a little level or something. Nothing important. In fact, I've had 2 levels kicked off because they were too hard. I was trying to make the old school Super Mario Brothers arcade game, the one with a single screen, and you had to defeat all the monsters to go to the next level. And I made it too hard, but I couldn't make it any easier. It was kind of frustrating. So I made it so that it would be difficult, but you could get through barely. And after a while, I got reports back that it was just like, no, nobody can beat this game. And they kicked it off. I was like, yeah, I can understand. I couldn't quite make the game I wanted. So I think for the next Super Mario Maker, I demand they make level editors for the original Mario Brothers. Yeah, I'm demanding it. It's a great resource for engineering if you're just getting into it. You don't want to do a bunch of programming. You just want to see what it's like to level edit it. This is great. It's open and fun, and just a nice little walking into the scenario. Don't expect to be programming Wolfenstein 3D or anything like that, or be prepared for bizarreness, because they will try the most bizarre things you can imagine in this game. But it's a lot of fun, and it's a definite introduction to the historical engineering of Mario Brothers level editing. Game Hut is by a programmer from the 1990s. Oh man, I left my tabs up. Sorry. Did the best I could, sorry. But he programmed for the Sega Genesis and made various games, and just goes into detail on various, writes some articles and makes videos about what it was like to program these games, the limitations he had to deal with, what he had to do to overcome them, and he talks about a lot of the same things you'll find in Wolfenstein 3D, or the Black Book for Wolfenstein 3D, and other books, but he just shows you in detail, how he did that, and why. And instead of showing you all the code, he just explains the thought process of how to do things and what was going on. And it's fascinating because you start to see the tricks and why they needed these tricks and what the tricks were actually doing. And he makes some great things. He also shows off his what it's like to be in a scene. The scene is a European hacker group, I'm going to say cracker group. They would download programs and then release them for free, and they program a little intro to themselves saying like, hey, I released this game, you better like it. And, eventually people were like really getting into that intro thing until they made kind of a scene out of it. So he came into programming by making just these bizarre videos using his Amiga, and he would just be making his Amiga do tricks so that other people could check it out. And he does some videos showing that off, and honestly they kind of cause a headache, because he's trying to show off ability, not story or narrative or anything like that. This text is wavy, and now it's waving this way, and now it's waving this way, and now we're going to have this do this. And there really isn't anything interesting happening. It's just he's showing off and you get it to happen. But Game Hut is a great resource when you want to. You're like, okay, how did they do all this? Like, there's an entire thing about a video released onto the Sega Genesis, and there was no way they could actually release this video for the Sega Genesis because the Sega Genesis didn't have any of the memory requirements. So they had to trick Sega into making these memory requirements. And sometimes colors would show up, and he said, the Genesis didn't have those colors. We were actually tricking it. We were having 3 colors go onto each other, and your mind simply saw that color. And so it goes into, the tricks and the ideas and the other stuff. So it's a good website to check out and, kind of see the reasoning behind ideas. And he has released some game code So it's worth a check out. And you know, if you get the chance, you should totally go to the website and try it out for yourself. That's the entire point of the historical engineering is not just finding out how they did it, but going, I can do that as well. Okay, so we've talked about, oh man, my tabs are open here as well. Oh, what's going on? I swear I got it here. Anyway, oh, well, I remember. I figured out how to get rid of the tabs and all that when I was putting the pictures in, but I was doing it backwards, so when I was preparing this video, I wasn't getting rid of the tabs because I forgot to do that, but in the previous video I was like, oh wait, I can do this. So blah, 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 there you go. There's the answer. Look at my tabs. Garage Games is a fully usable video game editor. It's free, and it was released in the early 2000s, so you can see, and they've got multiple editions of it ready to be downloaded, so you can actually, you know, imagine yourself programming for the PS2 or the GameCube and go, okay, what are my resources? What are the things I can do? What are my limitations? And try to program for that resource. And Garage Games will totally be a thing for that. The program is called Torque. I'd recommend Torque 3D over Torque 2D because Torque 3D has more documentation. Torque 2D simply doesn't, and it's actually very annoying. I tried making a 2D game, and I couldn't get a certain thing to happen, and it drove me nuts. But Torque 3D is very updated, and they work really hard on it. So it should give you an idea of what it's like to program, because they've got a full engine there for you. They've got all the resources for you, and it's free, and it's open source. So, you know, you can have that experience. You can be like, okay, I want to understand the PS2. I've got an engine, I've got this, these are my resources, I'm going to have to set everything to this, I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to have to, you know, make sure that I don't have too many polygons in view. Polygons are just triangles in three-dimensional space. And, you know, just work on it from that point of view, and you can do it. So I wanted to show you Garage Games as a way to do historical engineering for free without having to do other stuff. There's other websites for, you know, making Doom levels, or making levels for Atari, or making all sorts of things. And there's actually so much of it, I didn't know how to properly show it to you. So, and especially when the reality is a lot of these websites, they go, okay, you can make your own levels and stuff. By the way, you're going to have to download the ROM, and half the stuff we're doing is illegal. So I'm trying to show you legal ways to do things, if you catch my mind. There's no catch. You know, I just told you specifically. So Garage Games is really useful. It's free. It can show you what it was like to make a game from the early 2000s to today. And that is a great resource if you want to just understand game makers from that era. I don't think I have another slide, but... Oh, dude! Usborne is a non-fiction book, folks, and I took off my tabs from these guys, but oh man, that was the ideas. Anyway, Usborne was Usborne, however you pronounce it. I'm saying Usborne. They released a bunch of books back in the 80s and 90s on how to program for old school things like the BBC computer system. And yes, the BBC had a computer system. I know, it blows my mind as well. But they released all these great books, and I actually used them as a kid. I don't know how, but I remember these books, and they basically taught you, you know, this is, you know, what programming is like, this is how you should use it, and, you know, they actually gave you things to program and things to understand for that era. These were mostly 80s types games. For instance, computer game listings, some of them were just text-based games. Others might have a little bit of graphics, but not a lot. So you have to, it really shows you what some of the basics were. And the thing about these books and other stuff about them is they got people introduced to it, to the point that they could start to make games for themselves. So a lot of major video game makers today started on these books. And they were actually starting to sell games in the 80s because they were able to figure stuff out from these books. So they are a great, great resource for historical engineering in video games, because that's what the originals used. Even better, Usborne has actually released these books for free in PDF. There's the website right there. Take a quick screenshot and look for it, because you can now download these books. All they ask is that you look up the other Usborne books which are on that website and buy their books. And you know what? That's a great resource. They've got books on how to program games in Python and stuff like that. So it's worth the time to go check out anyway. And you can now do historical engineering using books that people from that era would actually have used if they were a kid. And there were a lot of kids during that time that started making games, so this would be a really cool thing for you. If your dad is from that era, you can kind of show him the book, and he might just be like, oh my gosh, let's do something. My dad won't, because, he thought computers were boring. It's true. But this is a great resource, and I want you to make sure, that you know about it. Go download some books. Go buy the book that they're selling now, and go a little wild. Make some games, man. And there we go. Let's see if there's another. No, there's not. Okay. So what we've done this week is I've shown you resources for you to understand video game culture. I've shown you history books so that you can kind of understand the history, not only of the cultural history, but when things came out. And it's almost entirely about companies and how they thought and the way they did things. And then the next resources I've shown you were source books or source information, where you can understand the culture from an ethnological point of view on arcade culture, and then from a historical point of view, very detailed information. Each one of those websites will take you weeks to go through to fully understand, the Hardcore 101, or the Hardcore Gaming 101, or the archive.org. I don't think I've ever finished archive.org. Or the arcade history. All of those are amazing resources to just understand. You kind of just go, okay, this is a year, what were the games? And you just see how things were improved, or how games were made, or things like that. Just the point of view from there. And then you look at other stuff, and you have a really good idea of how things work. Finally, to help you understand video game culture, you need to understand the programmers. So I introduced you to historical engineering. I showed a bunch of resources, books, websites, and even game engines that you can use to make your own games for specific eras. And these are great, great resources for you to just go back and be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to make a Wolfenstein 3D. I'm going to try to make a level for Duke Nukem 3D. I'm going to program for the BBC computer, microcomputer, and other stuff, so that you can really fully grasp the video game culture and how it works. Next week, we are going to go back into video game culture. I'm going to be talking about the clans and the different ways that video game culture interacts. How do we differentiate a programmer from a hardcore fan, and stuff like that. So, thank you very much for this wonderful week, and catch you later.